On February 11, 2012, the world lost one of its greatest voices. Whitney Houston, once hailed as the Voice and celebrated as the most awarded female artist of all time, was found lifeless in a Beverly Hills hotel bathtub. Just hours before she was scheduled to attend a Grammy party. The shocking scene ignited headlines across the globe, not only because of her untimely death at 48, but because it symbolized the tragic downfall of a woman who had once seemed invincible. For decades, Whitney Houston had been a goddess of music. Her soaring ballads like I Will Always Love You and Greatest Love of All defined generations, earning her over 200 million records sold worldwide. She wasn't just a singer, she was a phenomenon, a voice that could move mountains. But behind the dazzling performances and golden trophies, her life was unraveling in shadows of addiction, toxic love, and relentless pressure from fame. How did the most extraordinary voice of her generation descend into self-destruction? And how did the woman who seemed to have everything, talent, beauty, success, become a cautionary tale of fame's darkest side? Whitney Elizabeth Houston was born on August 9, 1963, in Newark, New Jersey, into a family where music was not just a passion but a legacy. Her mother, Cissy Houston, was a celebrated gospel singer and a backup vocalist for icons such as Aretha Franklin and Elvis Presley. Her cousins, Dionne and Dee Dee Warwick, were chart-topping performers in their own right. Even her honorary godmother was none other than the Queen of Soul herself, Aretha Franklin. From birth, Whitney was destined to inherit a world of extraordinary sound. Growing up in the Newark church community, Whitney was immersed in gospel music from her earliest years. By age 11, she was already singing solo in the New Hope Baptist Church choir, captivating congregations with a voice that seemed impossibly mature for a child. Her natural gift was evident, but it was also nurtured by a family who believed in discipline and excellence. Cissy, in particular, pushed Whitney to refine her vocal abilities, teaching her control, range, and the importance of emotional storytelling in song. Yet Whitney's childhood was not without hardship. The family lived modestly despite their musical connections, and the city of Newark was scarred by racial tensions and violence in the 1960s. In 1967, when Whitney was just 4 years old, her family was forced to relocate after their home was damaged during the Newark riots. The move to East Orange brought more stability, but Whitney never forgot the unrest that had surrounded her early years. Still, her household was one of music and faith, surrounded by relatives who were living embodiments of gospel and soul traditions. Whitney absorbed melodies like second nature. Her mother's insistence on discipline ensured she grew up with a blend of humility and ambition. By her teenage years, Whitney was already a star in the making, singing in church, modeling on the side, and drawing the attention of those who recognized she was not just another girl with a pretty voice. She was the child of gospel, molded by both hardship and heritage, and ready to carry her family's musical legacy to unimaginable heights. Whitney Houston attended Mount St. Dominic Academy, a Catholic girls' high school in Caldwell, New Jersey, where she balanced academics with her growing passion for music. Though her education provided structure, her real classroom was the church and the recording studios where she often accompanied her mother, Cissy, during late-night sessions. By her early teens, Whitney's voice had already developed a clarity and power that stunned even seasoned musicians. But Whitney was more than just a singer. With her striking beauty, tall, elegant, and radiant, she caught the attention of modeling scouts. At 15, she signed with Wilhelmina Models and became one of the first African American women to appear on the cover of 17 magazine in 1981. Her face soon appeared in Glamour and Cosmopolitan, and she even walked the runway for high-fashion brands. While modeling opened new doors, music remained her true calling. Her first taste of the professional music world came as a background vocalist. Whitney lent her voice to recordings by legends such as Chaka Khan, Lou Rawls, and Jermaine Jackson. Each experience sharpened her craft and expanded her understanding of the industry. Those who heard her in the studio often described her as a once-in-a-lifetime talent. Destined for stardom, the turning point arrived in 1983 when Whitney was discovered by Clive Davis of Arista Records. Davis, known for shaping some of the greatest voices in music, was immediately captivated by her ability to blend the emotional power of gospel with the commercial appeal of pop and R&B. Under his mentorship, Whitney began preparing her debut album, a project that would soon announce her arrival to the world. Even before her first album was released, Whitney was already performing on late-night television and receiving industry buzz. With her gospel roots, modeling background, and years of preparation, she had the complete package: voice, beauty, charisma, and discipline. By 1985, the world was ready to meet Whitney Houston, not just as Sissy's daughter or a church soloist, but as a star in her own right. Whitney Houston's debut album, released in 1985, was nothing short of a cultural explosion. Simply titled Whitney Houston, the record introduced the world to a voice that critics hailed as a miracle, pure, soaring, and seemingly limitless. Singles like Saving All My Love for You, How Will I Know, and Greatest Love of All shot to the top of the charts, earning her her first Grammy and establishing her as a once-in-a-generation talent. The album went on to sell more than 20 million copies worldwide, making Whitney an international superstar practically overnight. Her second album, Whitney, 1987, broke records and solidified her dominance. She became the first female artist to debut at #1 on the Billboard 200. And she scored 7 consecutive #1 singles, a feat unmatched at the time. Hits like I Wanna Dance with Somebody, Who Loves Me, not only conquered the charts but became anthems of joy. Instantly recognizable and enduring across generations, Whitney wasn't just singing songs, she was shaping the soundtrack of the 1980s. Throughout the late 1980s and early 1990s, Whitney's presence was magnetic. She became a staple of award shows, television specials, and world tours, dazzling audiences with both her vocal precision and emotional delivery. Her image, a graceful blend of glamour, elegance, and approachability, helped her cross boundaries, appealing to pop audiences while staying rooted in gospel and soul traditions. The peak of her success came in 1992 with the release of The Bodyguard. Cast opposite Kevin Costner, Whitney not only made her acting debut but also delivered what would become her signature song, I Will Always Love You. Her rendition transformed Dolly Parton's country ballad into a powerhouse pop anthem. Breaking sales records and topping charts worldwide, the soundtrack sold over 45 million copies, making it the best-selling movie soundtrack of all time. Whitney earned another Grammy, and her performance became one of the most iconic in music history. By then, Whitney was no longer just a singer, she was a global icon. Her influence transcended music, inspiring countless young artists while redefining what it meant to be a black woman in pop stardom. She was embraced across cultures and continents, a universal symbol of talent, grace, and success. But success came with its pressures. The expectation to maintain perfection, vocally, physically, and personally, was relentless. Behind the scenes, Whitney was already grappling with the toll of fame, the demands of her career, and a growing dependency on substances. Still, during this golden era, she appeared untouchable, the most awarded female artist of her time, celebrated as the voice by critics and peers alike. From gospel choirs in Newark to the stages of the world, Whitney Houston's rise was meteoric. She had achieved what few ever could: global dominance, artistic immortality, and a voice that became the gold standard of popular music. But even as the applause grew louder, the cracks beneath the surface were beginning to form, threatening to undo the legacy she had so triumphantly built. If Whitney Houston's career represented a fairy tale of talent and triumph, her love life told a far more turbulent story. In 1989, she met R&B singer Bobby Brown at the Soul Train Music Awards. Their connection was immediate, though many saw them as unlikely partners. Whitney, the polished pop princess, and Bobby, the rebellious bad boy of New Edition. Against the advice of friends, family, and her management, Whitney pursued the relationship. insisting that her love for Bobby was genuine and unshakable. In 1992, the same year Whitney reached the pinnacle of her career with The Bodyguard. She married Bobby Brown. The wedding was lavish, attended by celebrities and broadcast in magazines worldwide. On the surface, it seemed like another chapter in Whitney's charmed life. Behind closed doors, however, the marriage quickly descended into chaos. The relationship was marked by volatility, passionate love intertwined with jealousy, arguments, and allegations of abuse. Whitney and Bobby's union became a constant topic of tabloid fascination, with stories of domestic disputes, drug use, and wild partying overshadowing her musical accomplishments. Their daughter, Bobby Christina Brown, born in 1993, was often caught in the middle of the turmoil. For Whitney, the marriage accelerated her descent into addiction. Friends and colleagues later revealed that while she had experimented with drugs before, it was during her years with Bobby that her substance abuse became entrenched. The couple enabled one another's destructive habits, and their dysfunction was laid bare for the world to see in the 2005 reality show Being Bobby Brown. The series, intended to showcase their family life, instead revealed a troubling portrait of Whitney, frail, erratic, and a far cry from the radiant superstar the world once adored. Public opinion shifted drastically. Once admired as America's sweetheart, Whitney was now pitied and ridiculed. The media portrayed her as a cautionary tale, a diva destroyed by her own choices and a toxic marriage. Yet Whitney never stopped professing her love for Bobby, often defending him against criticism even as their relationship dragged her deeper into despair. After years of turmoil, Whitney filed for divorce in 2006, ending a 14-year marriage. The split granted her custody of Bobby Christina, but the scars remained: emotional, physical, and professional. Her once untouchable voice had been damaged, her reputation battered, and her confidence shaken. Whitney Houston's marriage to Bobby Brown remains one of the most infamous unions in music history. It was a love story turned tragedy, a partnership that fueled headlines and hastened her decline. For Whitney, the marriage was both a source of deep passion and profound pain, a reminder that even the most heavenly voices can be consumed by earthly demons. By the late 1990s, the golden image of Whitney Houston had begun to tarnish. Years of substance abuse, coupled with the turbulence of her marriage to Bobby Brown, started to erode both her health and her reputation. What had once been whispers of drug use became undeniable as her behavior grew increasingly erratic and her voice, once hailed as the greatest of her generation, began to falter. The first cracks appeared in her professional life. In 2000, Whitney was scheduled to perform at the Academy Awards but abruptly canceled, sparking speculation. Later that year, she was detained at an airport when security found marijuana in her luggage. Though the charges were later dropped, the incident fed into the growing narrative of decline. Her physical appearance also changed. She grew thinner, her once radiant energy dimmed, and she frequently arrived late or missed appearances altogether. The nadir came in 2002 with the release of her album Just Whitney. Intended as a triumphant comeback, it was overshadowed by a now infamous interview with Diane Sawyer. When asked about her drug use, Whitney denied addiction but delivered the haunting line, "Crack is whack." The phrase became a pop culture punchline, overshadowing her music and cementing the image of a superstar in denial. Her live performances, once flawless, began to collapse under the weight of her struggles. Fans reported disastrous concerts, with Whitney unable to hit notes that had once seemed effortless. Promoters grew wary of booking her, and the industry whispered that the voice was gone. By the mid-2000s, Whitney was more likely to appear in tabloids for her personal crises than on music charts. The reality show Being Bobby Brown in 2005 laid bare the chaos of her private life. Cameras captured Whitney and Bobby in unguarded moments, rambling conversations, erratic behavior, and visible tension. Instead of sympathy, the series invited ridicule, with many fans shocked at the contrast between the Whitney they idolized and the troubled woman on-screen. Her addiction consumed not only her career but also her personal relationships. Reports of domestic violence, financial troubles, and battles with record labels piled on. Friends and family, including her mother Sissy, tried interventions, but Whitney resisted, oscillating between attempts at sobriety and relapses. Perhaps most tragically, Whitney's daughter Bobbi Kristina grew up amid this turbulence. The toxic environment of her parents' relationship, combined with her mother's struggles, left lasting scars. Later, Bobbi Kristina would follow a similar path, struggling with substance abuse and dying under eerily similar circumstances just 3 years after her mother. By the time Whitney divorced Bobby Brown in 2006, her legacy was in tatters. She attempted a return with the 2009 album I Look to You, which initially received praise and debuted at number 1. But even this victory was short-lived. During her subsequent world tour, fans and critics were horrified by her vocal decline, with some audiences booing as she struggled through songs that had once defined her. The final years of Whitney's life were a battle between the superstar she once was and the addiction that consumed her. She was photographed looking frail and disoriented, her once sparkling presence reduced to shadows of herself. The industry that had once celebrated her now watched her self-destruction as if it were another tragic show. The tragedy of Whitney Houston is not just that she died young, but that the world witnessed her unravel in real time. From the pinnacle of superstardom to the depths of scandal, her story became a cautionary tale about the destructive power of fame, addiction, and toxic love. Whitney had given the world her voice, but in the end, the weight of her demons silenced it. By the mid-2000s, Whitney Houston was a shadow of the superstar the world once knew. Years of drug abuse, a crumbling marriage, and a string of public scandals had nearly destroyed her legacy. Yet Whitney, ever resilient, refused to let her story end in tragedy without a fight. In 2006, following her divorce from Bobby Brown, Whitney entered rehab once again. Friends and family, particularly her mother Sissy, urged her to reclaim her life and her career. Slowly, she began rebuilding, away from the toxic marriage and public chaos. She focused on recovery and re-establishing her voice, though it would never return to its peak brilliance. Her determination sparked hope among fans who had watched her decline with heartbreak. Her comeback moment arrived in 2009 with the release of I Look to You, her first studio album in 7 years. The record debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200, marking her first chart-topping album in over a decade. Critics praised her vulnerability, noting that while her voice had weathered, it carried a raw emotion that resonated deeply. Songs like I Didn't Know My Own Strength felt autobiographical. Whitney was telling the world she had survived. Television specials and interviews highlighted a new side of her. She appeared on Oprah's Next Chapter, candidly discussing her struggles with drugs, her turbulent marriage, and her journey back to faith. Fans who once pitied her began to root for her again. The narrative shifted from scandal to redemption. Whitney Houston, the fallen diva, was fighting her way back. Her subsequent Nothing But Love World Tour in 2010 was met with mixed reactions. While audiences celebrated her return, many critics noted her diminished vocal abilities. The powerhouse belts of the past were gone, replaced with a strained voice that struggled under pressure. Still, fans filled arenas, proving that Whitney's emotional connection to her audience transcended technical perfection. Despite the challenges, Whitney seemed determined to keep moving forward. She expressed excitement about new projects, including acting opportunities and mentoring younger artists. Those close to her described a woman still battling addiction but also yearning to reclaim her place in the music world. Her comeback, however, was fragile. The pressures of fame, the weight of expectation, and her ongoing struggles with substance abuse remained constant threats. By 2012, whispers of relapse began to surface, even as she prepared for a new chapter with a role in the film Sparkle. Alongside rising star Jordan Sparks, Whitney Houston's comeback was not a triumphant return to her former glory but a testament to her resilience. She had fallen from unimaginable heights, yet she refused to surrender completely. For millions of fans, her return was proof of her courage, a reminder that even icons are human, flawed, and fighting battles unseen. On February 11, 2012, Whitney Houston's story came to its tragic end. Just one day before the Grammy Awards, she was found unconscious in the bathtub of her suite at the Beverly Hilton Hotel. The coroner's report revealed drowning as the official cause, with heart disease and cocaine use as contributing factors. The world mourned not only the death of a 48-year-old woman but the silencing of a voice that had defined a generation. Her funeral, held at New Hope Baptist Church, the very place where she had first sung as a child, was a heartbreaking full circle. Friends, family, and fellow artists gathered to celebrate her life. Aretha Franklin, Stevie Wonder, and Alicia Keys honored her legacy, while millions around the globe watched, grieving the loss of the voice. In the years since her passing, Whitney's legacy has grown more complex but no less powerful. Films, documentaries, and biopics have sought to tell her story, each grappling with the duality of her life, unparalleled success and devastating struggle. Tributes continue to highlight her influence on artists from Beyoncé to Adele, who cite Whitney as a guiding inspiration. Her daughter, Bobbi Kristina, tragically died in 2015 under eerily similar circumstances, deepening the sorrow surrounding Whitney's legacy. For many, the fates of mother and daughter symbolize the destructive shadow of fame, addiction, and pain that haunted their family. And yet, Whitney's music endures. Songs like I Will Always Love You, Greatest Love of All, and I Wanna Dance with Somebody remain timeless. Played at weddings, graduations, and celebrations across the world, her voice, once described as a national treasure, continues to uplift and inspire, transcending the tragedy of her life. The story of Whitney Houston leaves us with a haunting question. How does the world reconcile the beauty of her gift with the devastation of her fall? Was she destroyed by fame, by love, by addiction, or by all three? What is certain is this: Whitney Houston was, and always will be, a legend. Her rise and fall reflect the fragility of greatness, but her music ensures that the voice will never truly be silenced.